Pharmacy Friends brings industry experts to the same table to talk about what's happening in pharmacy today, what's coming, and most importantly, what it means to you. In this special episode, we are on the road in New York City at our 21st Annual Specialty Summit. And I'm your special host, Jordan Almazan, Director of Clinical Strategy and Innovation, standing in for Mariam Tabatavai. More than 600 people have come to Times Square to listen to exceptional speakers, gain insight from expert panels, and network with the brightest minds in specialty. Today, we're talking with a number of leaders at Prime and how each of them is focusing their work on the three pieces of our newly formed framework. We want to help make medications more affordable, deliver an easy, transparent experience, and most importantly, help people achieve better health. We can't talk about transformation in healthcare without considering the role of information and technology. And we're here on the second and final day of the Specialty Summit with headliners like Dr. Jennifer Arnold, Caitlin Berry, TaylorMed, Free Market Health, and of course, Bill Nye the Science Guy. Here to talk to us about the future of tech at Prime is Chief Information Officer Dinesh Kandanchatha. And in this conversation, we're going to navigate the development of AI, accelerating innovation to bring the best for our customers, and considerations to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Good morning, Dinesh, and welcome to the Pharmacy Friends podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Dinesh, first off, I know that this is your first time here on the air with us on Pharmacy Friends, and I'm sure there are a lot of folks interested in learning a little bit more about you as a person. Can you tell us about your experience in the technology world and what brought you to Prime?
It's interesting how a series of coincidences can bring you to things that are formative in your experience. So I started off not in technology at all. My background's in psychology and neuroscience, so I began my academic career in that dimension. And, I come from a very East Indian family, and as a result, there was only a few choices for professional endpoints, one of which was medicine. And so, I very faithfully, as a good son, went down that path and then realized that, it wasn't for me. And so in the process of kind of going through that discovery, I realized that I had a great passion for the interaction between us and technology, and began working in the embedded systems domain, which is really around medical devices and around medical imaging. And so that's where I started, is in that area, leveraging kind of my understanding of decision making and cognitive load to help make applications more usable, support accessibility as well. So that's where I kind of got into technology, and then tried to solve a series of problems in that space. Everything from eventually killing a fax machine, which we're all, I'm sure, hoping will someday be true, and then beyond that into building a design agency that was focused on meaningful use and generating software adjuncts for chemical therapies. I've been all over the healthcare field, on the biopharma side, on the med device side. In my last job, I kind of worked as a consultant to help payers and providers and PBMs really think about how they really achieve patient outcomes and better clinical outcomes. And in that experience, I got to meet Matt and Mustafa, and were, as I'm sure anyone else who's met with them, was floored by the purpose-driven mission that Prime has. One of the sayings Mustafa has, which I really resonate with, is margin of Ford's mission. And so finding that combination of the balance between both operating well and doing good, I felt Prime was a really interesting place. And so when I was offered the opportunity to come join the team, there was no chance I was going to say no.
We're already seeing waves, I think, throughout the organization and the work that you're going to be, doing here at Prime Therapeutics. So, and speaking of waves, I'm really interested in all that you're thinking about with this interview that's coming up with Bill Nye, the Science Guy. We're getting a lot of buzz throughout the summit, and everybody's talking about Bill Nye, and he's our keynote speaker for the second day. And a lot of people here have been fans of Bill Nye since childhood. And here he is, really across generations, inspiring people to think about technology in a new way, really engage folks in science. Generations of people that I don't think would have found that interest without, a figure like Bill Nye. So I know you're going to be interviewing him. He's had such a cultural impact. What's your take on this interview, and what are you excited about?
It's very hard not to fanboy a little bit. So like many in the audience today, I was a little bit older, I think, in the sense that but I had a younger brother who was very much into this, and cousins who watched him very faithfully. And then when I had kids, they watched him faithfully. And I would say that the most interesting thing for me is his ability to bring a sense of magic to what is really a mundane, can be a mundane topic. And many kids in school struggle a lot with, feeling adequate in science programs, science, technology, and math programs. They feel like, I can't do this is too hard. And a big function of that is because of the things are not presented in a way that engages them. And Bill Nye has been able to, in a very unique way, across multiple generations, and if you think about what that means, right? Like, just think about how different generations think about education and communication. He's able to tailor his message across 30 plus years of young people and be relevant to them. I was talking to someone in the audience here at the summit, and their kids are 6 and 7, and they're also watching him in school. And so just think about the longevity and the legacy of that. So all of that, to be able to spend time with an individual that has made such an impact is, a great opportunity for me. And then more what we'll be focusing on in the conversation is really trying to think about and leverage his depth of experience on what comes next. And our children and our grandchildren, I think, are going to be experiencing a fundamentally different world than the world that many of us were educated in and operated our professional careers in. And how do they navigate that? Because a certain amount of numeracy and science literacy will be required to be able to be successful in whatever this next thing looks like. In the same way reading was required in order to survive really for most of the current set of human, last 100 years at least. So it's a new paradigm, and who best but someone like Bill Nye to help us navigate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very excited for that interview. But I'm sure you've also put some thought yourself as a thought leader in this space around what the future is going to look like. And I love to sort of be in that space, thinking about where are we going and what's the possibility of the future. So let me ask you that. What, in your view, is the future for maybe technology at Prime Therapeutics, the way that we're infusing these novel concepts around artificial intelligence, or even perhaps the impact that you expect to see in healthcare and in society? I know that's a big thing to unwrap, but I'd love to get a sense of sort of where the domains I think that you're thinking about.
Yeah, at the summit we've launched New Prime, and it's not just a color facelift. It really is a rethinking of our mission, a reimagining of it, and it's built on a few pillars. But the three that most directly resonate with me are: one is better clinical outcomes for our members. The second is a modern technology platform and a focus on affordability. And so those three, as in my role as CIO, I really feel I can impact because technology has throughout human history been a source of leverage, right? And whether it was fire in the case of the caveman, all the way to the steam engine to today AI, it is through our adoption of technology in a responsible way that we end up creating that productivity leverage that raises our standard of living. And so that's really a big part of what I think at Prime we're going to do. We're going to focus in on how do we bring the leverage of technology to clinical outcomes, member experience, and affordability. Where can we be more transparent, and by being more transparent, provide agency to our members, our prescribers, and our plans. And with agency, we can engage in a very constructive conversation about the inherent cost in our healthcare system and what we can do to make it more equitable and more accessible. So that's a big piece of what we're trying to do. We're looking at it from very simple things like what tools we use, and how we do our work, all the way through to how can we help clinicians bring a financial dimension to the prescriptions that they write, the scripts that they write, so that they can ensure adherence and less waste. So wherever we can seek an application of that technology in a responsible way, we're going to do so.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I love how you tied that back to really this, the brand here that we have at Prime Therapeutics, and sort of the, the renaissance, I think, that's occurring in that space, and where technology fits into that role. You also talked about technology as potentially, the way that I interpret it is as an equalizer, right? If you're able to lift all the ships, right, through technology, then theoretically we should be kind of removing some of the disparities that we have and that we see in health outcomes and all of these other factors that I think dictate where people end up, right? So I know that you also are very involved in thinking about equity in STEM education. I know we talked a little bit about that recently. And, Prime Therapeutics, I think, has a really bold stance on the way that we lean into diversity, equity, and inclusion in the organization. I myself am actually part of the Diversity and Inclusion Council. I get to work with a number of people across the organization. I'm going to make a couple shout outs here, Pat Milligan and Melissa Strong, who actually lead the DE&I Council. And I would love to hear about the work that you do, right? So what do you do both in and outside of Prime Therapeutics, perhaps how you think about technology in, I think, sort of underrepresented populations. I would love to hear about that.
Having been raised in a family where I had, my mom was a physicist in the 1960s, which for sure, as a South Asian woman who was working in a STEM field, was definitely underrepresented, and in fact it wasn't passive barriers, they were very active barriers to her progressing in her chosen area. And so as a child growing up in that household, I got to actually experience the effects in some ways of that form of discrimination. And the thinking that I've come to is that we have a unique opportunity as a society, and particularly as a business at scale like Prime is, to build in the diversity of our lived experience to make us better at fulfilling our mission for our target stakeholders. And if you don't bring that diversity to the conversation, you will have blind spots. And blind spots are not good for business and are not good for purpose. There's a very practical reason to do it, right? There is, of course, the moral reason to do it, which is it's the right thing to do. But then very practically, for those of us that are kind of, hard-nosed, practical people, there's a very practical financial and operational reason to do it. It builds resiliency in the organization. And in many ways, technology is blind. It doesn't see, really. And so as a result, it's a great mechanism for which to incorporate diversity and equity. You can, of course, structure it in ways to build in barriers. You can train AI algorithms to be discriminatory. Of course, all of that is possible. But that's where the responsible use of AI becomes really relevant. And not just AI, everything from how you codify data, how you build software applications, how you handle things like accessibility. All of those things are very important. One of the things that I spent a little bit of time doing was having a conversation around how you could allow for people that, social determinants of health, right? And where there's actual, some people, let's have a mobile app. Well, not everybody has a mobile phone, right? And so, by making that statement that we know the only way you're going to be able to engage is a mobile app, you are now, by definition, building a barrier. And so how do you engage in those conversations in a way that's productive? Technologists in general have a lot of tools, but they don't necessarily have the context. So we need groups like our DE&I groups and our diverse communities, our ally groups inside the business, to help us who are in the execution of technology gain that context so that we can apply those tools to the problem space in a way that, as you say, lifts all ships. Yeah,
and I definitely have an appreciation for that as a person of color myself, right, and minority in a number of intersectional ways. Representation matters.
Yes.
And as you said, the tools that we use in technology and beyond are double-edged swords. And so if you don't have the people who are representative of the population at the table to help you understand those different perspectives, we're going to falter, right? And we're going to create innovations, products, technology, use cases that are inherently less functional because they don't really capture the essence of all of the diversity, right, and opinions that we have throughout. So I appreciate that, and I applaud the work that you're doing, again, both within Prime Therapeutics and externally. I'm super excited about the future and where we're headed. So with that, I know, with all the things that are going on, we're here in a busy city in New York. We're on day 2 of the Specialty Summit. I'd like to, and in thinking about your past roles in venture and technology. So we learned that New York City is fast becoming a tech capital. And according to the city, actually in 2023, there were 25,000 tech startups, more than 369,000 tech jobs, and $9 billion in venture capital raised. So considering your career, what technology have you seen here in the city that's made you stop and say, hey, that's pretty cool?
Yeah, I'm going to make a shameless plug, just warning all the listeners in advance. So I had the great fortune of working with Capital RX as a startup very early in their journey. Ryan, the CTO over there, selected my previous firm to help them with some of their mobile work around design and development of a mobile application. So I've had the unique benefit of seeing them at that phase of their journey when they were, AJ and Ryan were just a couple of guys in a garage and with a really, really big idea, a very, very transformative idea. And if you think about capital, there hasn't really been a player that's doing what they are trying to do in more than 2 decades. And so they're really taking a moonshot. And we at Prime are really lucky to be part of that journey, and very excited about what it offers for our members. And then on the reverse side, it's very funny how things go full circle. So from that stage to today, I'm working as CIO at Prime, working very closely with Ryan as we bring their scale application to well over 25 million lives. And so it just goes to show you that everything starts and ends in New York City.
That's a fact, and maybe everything starts and ends with Capital RX too, and Prime Therapeutics. It's really fascinating. I'm quite proud of the work that we're doing in that partnership. Right? Really, I think the way that I view it is we're taking on the Cadillac of technology in the adjudication space. So that's phenomenal. And so I have a one last question for you. What's the one piece of technology that you just can't live without in your daily life?
Yeah, probably not surprising. I use a AI tool called Perplexity. I don't know if you guys have spent any time with that.
Absolutely.
It's a phenomenal tool. If you don't count the foundational technology of my iPhone, which none of it would be possible without, I do spend a lot of time using that piece of technology. And then my second favorite is a very old piece of technology, which is a book. So I always carry that piece of technology, and people don't think about it as technology, but if you think about it, there's a lot of technology that goes into printing a book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like having an Einstein at your disposal whenever you need, right?
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Dinesh. This was wonderful, and I appreciate your first time here on Pharmacy Friends podcast. Looking forward to the rest of the summit.
Thanks very much, Jordan. Great talking to you.